Captain Lee Dong-woo floated through the cold metal halls of Mining Station 7, watching his tired workers drag themselves to another day of backbreaking labor the asteroid belt beyond. Jupiter was a lonely place where humans spent their lives, digging rocks for alien masters who paid them barely enough to survive. The three great empires had ruled the galaxy for over 1,000 years. Each one thought they were the strongest and best. The Vorthan Empire controlled the northern sectors, with their beautiful crystal ships that could slice through planets like knives through butter. The Kelton Federation dominated all the major trade routes with vessels that could bend space itself, making them appear anywhere in the galaxy in seconds. The Zephyrian Collective held the rich core worlds with their living bioships that could grow new weapons and heal from any damage. All three empires agreed on one thing, though: humans were good for only two things: digging in dangerous places and working in factories that would kill most other species. Humans were tough and could survive in conditions that would kill aliens, so they made perfect slaves. Lee had been working in the asteroid mines for 20 years, ever since the aliens conquered Earth when he was just a boy. He remembered his homeworld as a place of blue skies and green fields, but now it was just another factory world where humans made weapons and ships for their alien masters. His wife, Dr. Park Mi-young, worked in the research section, supposedly studying better ways to mine asteroids, but Lee knew she was working on something much more important today. Was different, though. Today Mi-young had called him to Section 7 with an excitement in her voice that he had not heard in years. She told him to bring his most trusted workers, the ones who had been with him since the beginning, the ones who still remembered what it felt like to be free. Lee gathered his team of 12 miners, all of them battle-scarred veterans of the asteroid fields. They had worked together for so long they could communicate with just looks and gestures. These men and women had seen friends die in mining accidents, watched their families scattered across the galaxy, and spent decades breaking their backs for aliens who treated them like tools. When they reached Section 7, it looked like any other mining bay with rough rock walls and dim lighting, but Mi-young was waiting for them with a smile that made her look 10 years younger. She pressed her hand against what looked like a normal rock wall, and suddenly it split open, revealing a passage that led deeper into the asteroid. The hidden chamber beyond was enormous, stretching so far that the ceiling disappeared into darkness. The walls were lined with clean white panels that glowed with soft light, and the air hummed with power that made Lee's teeth ache. Hundreds of humans in spotless uniforms worked at control stations, monitoring displays that showed star charts of the entire galaxy. Mi-young led them to a central platform where a massive holographic display showed three enormous shapes floating in deep space. Each one was bigger than most moons, covered in weapons that could crack planets and bristling with shield generators that could stop the fire of entire fleets. "These are our planet ships," Mi-young said, her voice filled with pride. "New Seoul, New Busan, and New Jeju. Each one can house 10 million humans and produce enough firepower to destroy star systems, but their real power is not in their weapons." Lee stared at the displays, unable to believe what he was seeing. "How is this possible?" he whispered. "Where did we get the resources to build something like this? We have been building them for 50 years, Mi-young replied. "Ever since the day the aliens conquered Earth. We took every scrap of metal, every broken ship, every failed experiment that the empires threw away. We studied their technology, learned their weaknesses, and made everything better." She gestured to the displays showing the interior of the planet ships. They were not just weapons, but complete worlds with farms and factories and cities inside their armored hulls. Millions of humans lived and worked inside each ship, preparing for the day when they would reveal themselves to the galaxy. "How many people know about this?" Lee asked. "Everyone," Mi-young said with a smile that was both sad and proud. "Every mining station, every factory world, every human colony has been part of this project. We have been building these ships piece by piece, hiding the parts in plain sight. The aliens see us as simple workers, so they never questioned why we needed so much metal and energy." Lee looked around the chamber at the faces of the workers. These were not the broken slaves that the empires knew. These were scientists, engineers, and warriors who had been training in secret for decades. They had given up their old lives, their families, everything to make sure humanity would never bow to alien masters again. The displays showed thousands More human faces, young and old men and women, all with the same determined expression. They were scattered across the galaxy working in alien factories and mines, but they were all part of the same secret network. All of them were waiting for the signal that would change everything. Every human who works on these ships, volunteered, Mi Young explained. They left their families behind and told everyone they were dead, so the aliens would never suspect. We have been training them to fight, to think, to work together in ways the empires never imagined possible. Li watched as the displays showed the planet ships moving through space. Their massive engines could push them faster than any ship in the galaxy, and their weapons could reach targets halfway across star systems. But what impressed him most was how they moved with perfect coordination, like they were parts of a single organism. When do we strike? Li asked. Tomorrow. Mi Young replied. The empires have grown lazy and arrogant. They think humans will always be their servants. But tomorrow they will learn that we have been planning our own destiny all along. As if summoned by her words, alarms began to sound throughout the mining station. The other workers looked up from their jobs, confused by the noise they had never heard before, but Li and his team knew exactly what it meant. The time for hiding was over. The planet ships were moving into position across the galaxy. Each one was heading for the capital world of one of the three empires. They would arrive within hours, and when they did, the age of human slavery would end forever. Li looked at his wife and saw the same determination in her eyes that he felt in his own heart. They had spent their entire lives as slaves, working for aliens who saw them as nothing more than tools. But now they were about to become something the galaxy had never seen before: free humans with the power to defend their freedom. The age of empires was about to end, and the age of human independence was about to begin, with the thunder of planet-sized guns that would echo across the stars. Admiral Kim Tae-ho stood on the bridge of New Seoul, watching the crystal palace of Vorth Prime grow larger on the main screen. The fortress had never been attacked in 1,000 years. Its rainbow shields could stop the fire of 100 ships, and its weapons could destroy entire fleets in minutes. But the Vorthans had never faced anything like New Seoul. The bridge was filled with humans who had trained for this moment their entire lives. Commander Choi So-young sat at the weapons console, her fingers dancing across controls that could unleash the power of a star. Lieutenant Park Hyun-woo monitored communications, while dozens of other officers worked with calm efficiency. These were not the frightened miners the aliens knew. These were the children of Earth, ready to take back their freedom. The Vorthan fleet was already moving to stop them. 50 crystal ships, each one beautiful and deadly, their hulls shining like jewels in the starlight. Admiral Kim had studied these ships for 20 years. He knew their weapons, their shields, their tactics. He knew exactly how to destroy them. Sir, incoming message from the Vorthan flagship. Lieutenant Park reported. They are demanding our surrender. Kim almost smiled. Put them on screen. The Vorthan commander appeared on the display. His tall body was covered in glowing crystals, and his face showed the pride of a race that had never known defeat. Unknown vessel, you have entered Vorthan space without permission. Surrender now or be destroyed. I am Admiral Kim Tae-ho of the Human Federation. Kim replied, his voice steady and strong. We are not surrendering to anyone ever again. The alien commander's crystals flashed with anger. Humans, you dare threaten us with your primitive mining ship. We will crush you like the insects you are. Kim smiled. Commander Choi, show them what a mining ship can do. Seoul came alive with deadly purpose. Thousands of weapon ports opened along its planet-sized hull. Each gun was bigger than most starships, and together they created a wall of fire that could melt asteroids. The Vorthan ships, so graceful and proud, suddenly looked like toys facing a giant. The first attack struck the Vorthan fleet like lightning from an angry god. Crystal ships that had ruled the galaxy for centuries simply vanished, their shields useless against the overwhelming power. The few survivors tried to run, but knew Seoul's weapons could reach targets across half the star system. Impossible, the Vorthan commander screamed. Nothing can generate that much energy. You spent 1,000 years making us dig up your fuel. Kim replied calmly. Did you think we would not learn how to use it? The battle lasted only 10 minutes. The mighty Vorthan fleet, terror of the northern sectors, was completely destroyed, but Kim was not finished. New Seoul began moving toward Vorth Prime itself, its massive engines pushing the planet ship through space like a moving world of death. The fortress tried to fight back. Its ancient weapons had protected the Vorthan capital for a millennium, and they fired desperately at the approaching human ship, but New Sol's shields were made from the same crystal technology the Vorthans had perfected, only stronger. Every shot bounced off harmlessly, while New Sol's guns prepared to return fire target. Their power cores, Kim ordered, "We want to capture the planet, not destroy it." New Sol's weapons fired with surgical precision. The fortress shields flickered and died. The planet's surface weapons went silent in less than an hour. The capital of the Vorthan Empire was defenseless before humanity's might. "This is Admiral Kim to all Vorthan forces," he broadcast across the star system. "Your empire is finished. Any ship that surrenders will be spared. Any ship that fights will be destroyed. You have 1 hour to decide." Across the galaxy, the other empires watched in horror as news spread. The Kelton Federation began calling back their fleets, while the Zephyrian Collective started growing new bioships at emergency speed, but they were too late. New Bison and New Jeju were already moving toward their territories on New Sol's bridge. Kim looked at the surrendering Vorthan ships and felt no joy, only grim satisfaction. This was not about revenge or conquest. This was about making sure humanity would never again be forced to mine rocks for alien masters while their children starved on distant worlds. Sir Commander Choi reported, "We are getting signals from human colonies across Vorthan space. They are rising up against their guards." Kim nodded. The plan was working perfectly. While the empires had focused on their grand fleets and mighty fortresses, humanity had been building something far more dangerous: hope. And now that hope had weapons the size of planets. The Vorthan commander appeared on screen again, but now his crystals were dim and his voice was broken. "How did you hide this from us for 50 years? We watched your people. We had spies in every human settlement because you saw what you wanted to see." Kim replied, "You saw broken slaves who were grateful for any scraps you threw them. You never looked deep enough to see that we were still human. And humans never forget, humans never forgive, and humans never give up." The crystal palace that had ruled a quarter of the galaxy for 1,000 years was now under human control. Its weapon systems were shut down, its shields were powered by human engineers, and its communications arrays were broadcasting a simple message to every world in Vorthan space: humans are free. Come and join us on mining stations and factory worlds across 50 star systems. Humans were putting down their tools and picking up weapons they had hidden for decades. The Vorthan guards who had kept them as slaves were outnumbered 1,000 to 1, and they were surrendering as fast as they could. Admiral Kim walked to the observation deck and looked out at the stars. Each point of light represented a world, and many of those worlds had been ruled by fear for centuries, but now the fear was ending. The Vorthan Empire had fallen in a single day, and the other empires would follow. New Sol began moving toward the next target. The Kelton Federation would be harder to defeat because their ships could fold space and appear anywhere, but humanity had planned for that too. They had studied Kelton technology for decades, and they knew its weaknesses. The age of human slavery was ending. The age of human freedom was about to begin, and it would start with the complete destruction of every empire that had ever dared to put chains on the children of Earth. The galaxy would learn that humanity was not just another species to be conquered. Humanity was the force that would bring freedom to every world under alien rule, and nothing in the universe could stop them now. President Yoon Da-bin of the Kelton Federation stared at the reports flooding her command center. 3 hours ago, the Vorthan Empire had controlled 50 star systems. Now they controlled none. The human ship called New Sol was moving through Vorthan space like a shark through a school of fish, and every world it passed was joining the human rebellion. "How is this possible?" demanded General Nam Ki-chul, his forearms waving in panic. The Keltons had always been proud of their spy networks, but they had completely missed humanity's secret weapon. "Our agents reported only mining operations and factory work, because that is all we were meant to see," replied Dr. Song Hyojin, the Federation's chief scientist. She was human herself, one of the few allowed to work in high positions, and now her alien colleagues were looking at her with fear. "They used our own pride against us. We saw humans as simple workers, so we never looked deeper." The truth was starting to come out of Federation computers, and it was terrifying. For 50 years, humans had been carefully placed in every major project, every important facility, every strategic location. They had been the perfect spies, invisible because everyone thought they were too stupid To understand what they were seeing, look at this, Dr. Song said, showing a star chart. Every human colony is positioned near major shipping lanes, communication centers, or military bases. Every mining operation is located where they could gather secrets or steal technology. This was not random placement. This was a 50-year spy operation. President Yoon felt her blood turn to ice. You are saying they have been preparing for this war since the day we conquered them? Not preparing, Song corrected, planning. They knew exactly when and how to strike for maximum damage. New Seoul was not just built, it was designed specifically to destroy Vorthen crystal ships. I am betting New Busan is made to counter our space-folding technology, and New Jeju is meant to fight Zephyrian bioships. If her words had called it, alarms began screaming throughout the command center on the main display. A massive shape was coming out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. New Busan had arrived, and it was even larger. Then New Seoul. All fleets prepare for battle. General Nam ordered. Deploy the spacefold generators. The Kelton Federation's greatest weapon was their ability to bend space itself. Their ships could appear anywhere on the battlefield instantly. No enemy had ever been able to predict where a Kelton ship would strike next, but as the Federation fleet began their space-folding attacks, something impossible happened. New Busan followed them. Every time a Kelton ship folded space, New Busan's computers tracked the fold and predicted where the ship would appear. The massive human vessel moved through folded space like it was swimming through water. Its weapons fired with perfect accuracy at ships that thought they were safely hidden in other dimensions. They are reading our fold signatures, General Nam screamed. How are they doing this? Admiral Jo Sung-min's voice came through the communication system. Broadcasting from New Busan's bridge. General Nam, you might remember me. I worked on your spacefold project. For 15 years I helped design the very technology you are using against us now. The Kelton commander's face went white. Jo Sung-min had been his chief human helper, a brilliant scientist who had supposedly died in a mining accident 10 years ago, but here he was commanding a planet-sized warship that could counter every trick the Federation had ever developed. You used our ideas to build your empire. Jo continued, you took our creativity, our innovation, our dreams, and you turned them into weapons against us. Now we are returning the favor. New Busan's guns opened fire and the Federation fleet began to die. Ships that tried to fold space found their dimensional pockets collapsing around them. Vessels that tried to hide in alternate dimensions were dragged back into normal space by New Busan's gravity machines. The humans had taken 50 years of Federation technology and turned it into a trap. Sir, reported Commander Lee Young-ho from the weapons station. The Federation capital is asking for immediate surrender talks. Jo smiled grimly. Tell them we will accept their surrender when every human slave in Federation space is free. Until then, we keep fighting on the planet below. President Yoon watched her mighty fleet being destroyed and understood the terrible truth. The empires had created their own doom by enslaving humanity. They had given humans access to all their technology, all their secrets, all their weaknesses. And humans, being human, had learned, adapted, and planned their revenge with the patience of a species that had survived ice ages and meteor strikes. Dr. Song, she said quietly, what do we do now? The human scientist looked at her with eyes that held no hate, only sadness. You do what every empire in history has done when they finally meet their match. You learn to live as equals or you die as tyrants. The Federation had ruled through superior technology and careful planning, but humans had learned their technology and made better plans. The space folding ships that had once been the terror of the galaxy were now helpless against an enemy that understood them better than they understood themselves. New Busan moved through the Federation fleet like death itself. Its weapons reached into folded space and pulled out ships that thought they were safe. Its shields turned Federation energy beams into harmless light. Its computers predicted every move before the Federation captains even thought of it. Admiral Jo broadcast a message to every world. In Federation space, this is the Human Liberation Fleet. Your empire is finished. Any world that frees its human slaves will be protected. Any world that continues the old ways will be conquered. The choice is yours across Federation territory. The message was heard on every radio, every communication device, every computer screen. Human workers in Federation factories put down their tools and walked out. Human miners in Federation asteroid belts took control of their stations. Human servants In Federation palaces opened the doors for their liberators. The Kelton Federation had ruled a third of the galaxy for 800 years. It had seemed eternal and unbeatable. But in less than 6 hours, it was collapsing as world after world declared independence and joined the human rebellion. President Yoon sat in her command chair watching her empire die and wondering how they had been so blind. The humans had been right there in front of them for 50 years, working quietly, learning patiently, planning carefully, and when they finally struck, it was with the force of accumulated decades of rage and determination. The age of the Federation was ending. The age of human freedom was beginning, and there was nothing anyone could do to stop it outside. New Bizen continued its steady advance toward the Federation capital, and across the galaxy human colonies were rising up with weapons and ships that had been hidden for decades. The Second Empire was falling and only one remained, but the Zephyrian Collective would not fall as easily as the others. Their bioships could adapt and evolve during battle. They had ruled through biological superiority for centuries, and they would not give up. Without a fight, the final battle was coming, and it would be the most dangerous of all? Deep in the core worlds of the Zephyrian Collective, Hive Mother Zara watched her bioships grow at emergency speed. The living vessels pulsed with alien life, their organic hulls expanding like tumors as they prepared for war, unlike the metal ships of the other empires. Zephyrian vessels were alive, able to heal damage, adapt to new weapons, and evolve during battle. The human ship approaches, reported Drone Commander Keth, his voice buzzing through the organic communication network. New Jeju is larger than the others. Our sensors detect massive life signs aboard Zara's multiple eyes focused on the tactical display. The Zephyrian Collective had ruled through biological superiority for centuries. Their ships could grow back from any damage. Their weapons were living creatures that hunted their targets, and their crews were connected in a hive mind that made them perfectly coordinated. No mechanical ship had ever defeated a fully grown Zephyrian bio fleet, but as New Jeju came out of hyperspace, Zara felt something she had never experienced before. Fear. The human ship was not just large, it was alive. Its hull pulsed with organic rhythms, and tentacles of living metal reached out to taste the solar wind. The humans had taken Zephyrian biotechnology and merged it with their own science. Impossible, Zara whispered. They cannot create life, they are mechanical beings. But the proof was right in front of her. New Jeju was a hybrid of biology and technology, a living planet that combined the best of both worlds. As the Zephyrian fleet moved to attack, the human ship released thousands of smaller vessels that swarmed through space like angry hornets. Captain Bei Sujin stood on New Jeju's bridge, watching the alien bioships approach. Through her ship's organic sensors, unlike the other planet ships, New Jeju was truly alive, its crew working in harmony with the ship's biological systems. She could feel the ship's excitement as it prepared for battle, its hunger for the fight ahead. Captain reported Lieutenant Kim Min-ho, the bioships are releasing their hunter-killers. Zephyrian weapons were living creatures, each one the size of a fighter craft, designed to burrow into enemy hulls and eat the ships from the inside. They had never failed to destroy their targets, and now thousands of them were racing toward New Jeju. Release our own hunters, Bei ordered calmly. New Jeju's hull opened like a flower, and its own living weapons came out. But these were not copies of Zephyrian technology. They were something entirely new. The human bioships looked like metal insects, their bodies shining with both organic and artificial materials. They moved with the precision of machines, but the adaptability of living creatures. The two swarms met in the empty space between the fleets, and the battle was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Zephyrian hunters tried to use their usual tactics, but the human bioships were ready for them. They moved in perfect coordination, using pack tactics that confused and overwhelmed the alien creatures. Our hunters are being destroyed, Drone Commander Keth reported in shock. The human bioships are learning from every fight. Zara watched in horror as her perfect biological weapons were systematically destroyed. The human creatures did not just fight, they studied, adapted, and evolved in real time. Every Zephyrian attack was countered, every biological advantage was neutralized. How are they doing this? She demanded. Her answer came from an unexpected source. Dr. Ruhe-Wan's voice filled the Zephyrian command center. Broadcast from New Jeju's bridge, because we learned from the best teacher in the galaxy. Zara's blood turned to ice. Ru had been her chief researcher for 20 years, a brilliant human scientist who had helped develop the collective's most advanced bioweapons. She had supposedly died in a lab accident 15 years ago, but here she was commanding humanity's response to Zephyrian biotechnology. You taught us how to make life-serve technology, Dr. Ru continued, but you never understood that humans have been doing that for thousands of years. We domesticated animals, grew plants, and learned to work with nature instead of just controlling it. New Jeju's main weapons came online, and they were terrifying to see. Instead of energy beams or missiles, the human ship fired living creatures that moved through space like schools of fish. But these were not simple hunters, they were ecosystem destroyers designed to break down the biological networks that held Zephyrian ships together. The first bioship to be hit began to dissolve from the inside out. Its living hull turned against itself, organic systems failing as the human bioweapons rewrote their genetic code. Within minutes, the mighty vessel was nothing but organic soup floating in space. They are not just fighting us, Zara realized with growing terror. They are turning our own biology against us. The battle became a massacre. The Zephyrian bioships, so perfect in their biological harmony, could not adapt fast enough to counter the human weapons. New Jeju moved through the fleet like a predator, among prey, its living weapons systematically destroying everything in their path. All ships retreat, Zara ordered. Fall back to the core worlds, but it was too late. The human bioships had already begun to spread throughout the system, and they were multiplying. Unlike the Zephyrian hunters, which needed to return to their motherships to reproduce, the human bioweapons could copy themselves using any available organic matter. Captain reported, Lieutenant Kim, we are getting surrender requests from 17 Zephyrian colonies. They are asking for protection from their own bioships. Bay nodded grimly. The Zephyrian collective had always controlled their subjects through biological manipulation, but now that control was breaking down. The human bioweapons were freeing the enslaved species by breaking their biological chains. Accept their surrenders, she ordered, and send medical teams to help them recover from years of biological slavery. The Zephyrian Empire had seemed unbeatable. Their living ships could heal from any wound, adapt to any weapon, and evolve to counter any strategy, but the humans had found the one weakness that the collective had never considered. They had turned the Zephyrians' own biology against them. Dr. Ru's voice came over the communication system again, broadcasting to every world in Zephyrian space. This is Dr. Ru He-1 of the Human Liberation Fleet. I was once a slave forced to create weapons for your empire. Now I am free, and I offer that same freedom to every living being under Zephyrian rule. The biological networks that connected every world in the collective began to break down. Human bioweapons spread through the communication systems, freeing enslaved minds and breaking the mental chains that had held billions of beings in bondage for centuries. On world after world, the enslaved populations rose up against their Zephyrian masters. The biological controls that had kept them obedient for generations were failing, and they were remembering what it felt like to think for themselves. New Jeju continued its advance through Zephyrian space, but it was no longer fighting a war. It was conducting a liberation. The last of the three great empires was collapsing, not through military defeat, but through the simple act of giving freedom back to those who had forgotten they could be free. As Hive Mother, Zara watched her empire dissolve around her. She finally understood the true horror of what humanity had done. They had not just built better weapons or stronger ships, they had weaponized hope itself, and against hope no empire could stand. 6 months after the first strike, the galaxy had changed beyond recognition. The three great empires that had ruled for centuries were gone, their mighty fleets scattered, their proud capitals occupied by human forces. But Admiral Kim Tae-ho felt no happiness as he stood in the Grand Council chamber of what had once been the Galactic Senate. The chamber was filled with representatives from hundreds of world species that had been enslaved or crushed by the empires for generations. Humans sat alongside their former masters, all of them trying to figure out how to build a new future from the ashes of the old order. The question before us, Kim announced, is not how to punish the empires, but how to prevent new ones from rising. Former President Yoon Da-bin of the Kelton Federation sat in the section reserved for war criminals, but she was no longer the proud leader who had once ordered the Destruction of human colonies, the fall of her empire had broken something inside her, and now she looked like what she really was, an old woman who had made terrible mistakes. You could have destroyed us completely, she said, her voice barely a whisper. Your planet ships had the power to crack our worlds like eggs. Why did you not do it? Dr. Park Mi-young, now serving as humanity's chief diplomat, stood to answer. Because we are not you. We did not fight this war to become new tyrants. We fought it to make sure no one could ever be enslaved again. The truth was more complex than that, and everyone in the chamber knew it. The 3 planet ships had been built not just as weapons, but as symbols of human determination. They were proof that any species, no matter how crushed, could fight back, if they had the will and the patience to plan their freedom. But what happens now? Asked Ambassador Kang Sora, representing the freed colonies. The empires are gone, but the galaxy still needs order. Someone has to protect the trade routes, settle disputes, defend against threats. Kim nodded. This was the real challenge. It was easy to destroy a corrupt system, but building something better required wisdom that humanity was still learning. We propose a new kind of government, he said, not an empire ruled by one species, but a confederation where every world has a voice. The planet ships will serve as protectors, not rulers. They will enforce the peace, but they will not make the laws. Former Hive Mother Zara of the Zephyrian Collective laughed bitterly. You think it will be that simple power corrupts, Admiral? Your people have the strongest weapons in the galaxy. How long before they decide they know what is best for everyone else? The question hung in the air like a challenge. It was the fear that every freed world shared, that humanity would simply become the new oppressors, using their planet ships to force their will on the galaxy. Captain Bei Sujin of New Jeju stood up slowly. Because we have been slaves, she said simply. Every human in this room has worked in the mines, scrubbed floors in alien palaces, or watched their children taken away to serve in foreign armies. We know what it feels like to be powerless. She pointed to the massive display showing the 3 planet ships orbiting the council world. These ships were not built by conquerors. They were built by people who remembered what it was like to be afraid, to be hungry, to be hopeless. We cannot forget that, because it is part of who we are. Admiral Jo Sungnan of New Bisan nodded in agreement. The empires fell because they forgot where they came from. They became so powerful that they could not imagine being anything else. But humanity will never forget the taste of chains. The debate continued for hours, with representatives from dozens of worlds arguing about trade agreements, defense pacts, and colonial rights. But slowly a new structure began to form. The Galactic Confederation would be governed by elected representatives from every member world. The planet ships would serve as a mobile defense force, protecting the Confederation from outside threats, but forbidden from interfering in internal politics. There is one more thing, Kim said as the session drew to a close. The planet ships will not be permanent. They are already training new crews from all the freed worlds. In 50 years, humans will step down from command, and the ships will be crewed by representatives from every species in the Confederation. The chamber erupted in surprised voices. No one had expected humanity to give up their ultimate weapons so easily. You are really going to hand over the planet ships? Asked President Yoon in disbelief. We have to, replied Dr. Park. Power like that should not belong to any one species forever. The empires lasted as long as they did because they hoarded their advantages. We are going to share ours. The plan was ambitious and dangerous. The planet ships would gradually transfer command to mixed crews trained by humans but representing all the species of the Confederation. In 50 years, the ships that had destroyed the empires would be commanded by the children of those same empires. Some representatives thought it was foolish to give up such power. Others thought it was the wisest thing humanity had ever done, but all of them agreed that it was the most human thing imaginable. As the council session ended, Kim walked to the observation deck and looked out at the stars. The 3 planet ships hung in space like artificial moons, their hulls shining with the light of distant suns. They were beautiful and terrible symbols of humanity's greatest triumph and greatest responsibility. Do you think it will work? Asked Dr. Park, joining him at the window. Kim was quiet for a long moment. I do not know, but it is better than the alternative. The empires ruled through fear and oppression. We are going to try something different, ruling through hope and cooperation. The galaxy was entering a new age, one where former slaves would stand as equals with their former masters. It would not be easy, and there would be mistakes along the way, but for the first time in centuries, every world in the galaxy had a chance to determine its own destiny, and, watching over them, all the planet ships continued their eternal patrol, ready to defend the freedom that humanity had fought so hard to win. The age of empires was over. The age of the Galactic Confederation had begun, but in the dark spaces between the stars, new threats were already stirring. Threats that would test whether humanity's dream of freedom could survive. In a galaxy where peace was always fragile and freedom always had to be earned again and again, the planet ships had won the first battle for galactic freedom, but the war for the future had only just begun. 25 years had passed since the fall of the empires, and the galaxy had transformed into something unrecognizable from the dark days of alien rule. Captain Lee Hyojin, son of the legendary Admiral Kim Tae-ho, stood on the bridge of New Seoul. As it approached the Outer Rim territories where the first human colonies had been established, the ship looked different now. Where once it had been a weapon of war, it was now a symbol of hope. Its hull was painted with the colors of 100 different worlds, and its crew included members from dozens of species who had once been enemies. The planet ship had evolved from an instrument of destruction into a guardian of peace. Captain, reported Commander Sing-Wei Lin, a hybrid of human and Kelton. Genetics, we are getting a distress signal from the frontier colonies. Unknown ships are attacking the outer settlements. Lee nodded grimly. The Galactic Confederation had brought peace to the core worlds, but the galaxy was vast, and there were still threats lurking in the dark spaces between stars. Pirates, raiders, and the occasional remnant of the old empires still caused trouble on the frontier. Take us to maximum speed, he ordered, and signal New Bisan and New Jeju. We may need backup as New Seoul jumped to hyperspace. Lee thought about how much had changed. The planet ships were no longer humanity's exclusive weapons. Their crews now included former enemies who had learned to work together for the common good. The Vorthan crystal workers maintained the ship's shields. Kelton engineers operated the spacefold drives, and Zephyrion biotechnicians kept the living systems healthy. Sir, called out Lieutenant Park. Dayoung, we are coming out of hyperspace. Now the scene that greeted them was chaos. 3 massive ships of unknown design were attacking a peaceful farming colony, their weapons turning fertile fields into smoking craters. The colonists' small defense fleet was being overwhelmed, and thousands of civilians were trapped on the planet's surface in known vessels. Lee broadcast on all frequencies. This is the Confederation ship New Seoul. Cease your attack immediately and withdraw from this system. The response came in a harsh mechanical voice. Confederation ship, you are in territory claimed by the Nexus Empire. Submit to our authority or be destroyed. Lee exchanged glances with his mixed species crew. The Nexus Empire was a new threat that had emerged from the Galactic Rim, a confederation of machine intelligences that viewed all organic life as inferior. They had been raiding frontier worlds for months, enslaving populations and stripping planets of resources. I guess some people never learn, muttered Commander Singh, her Kelton heritage showing in the way. Her skin changed color with emotion. All stations prepare for battle, Lee ordered, but remember, we are not here to conquer. We are here to protect. New Seoul's weapon systems came online, but they were different from the planet killers of the past. The ship's guns were now calibrated for precision strikes designed to disable rather than destroy. The goal was to stop the attackers while minimizing casualties on both sides. The battle was swift and decisive. The Nexus ships were powerful, but they had been designed to fight individual worlds, not planet-sized vessels crewed by the combined knowledge of 3 former empires. Within minutes, 2 of the attackers were disabled, and the third was in full retreat. Should we pursue? Asked Commander Sing. Lee shook his head. Let them go. They will carry word back to their leaders that the Confederation is still strong. As New Seoul moved into orbit around the attacked colony, Lee got a transmission from the planet's governor, an elderly human woman named Dr. Choi Hae-ring. Captain Lee, she said, her voice filled with gratitude. Thank you for coming so quickly. We thought we were going to lose everything. That is what we are here for, Leah replied. How are the casualties? Minimal, thanks to your quick response. But Captain, there is something else. The Nexus ships were looking for something specific. They kept demanding we turn over our archives and cultural data. They seemed particularly interested in our history records. Lee frowned. The Nexus Empire had always been focused on resources and territory. Why would they suddenly be interested in historical information, Captain? Interrupted Lieutenant Park. We are getting a priority transmission from Confederation Command. Admiral Kim wants to speak with you. Immediately Lee's father appeared on the main screen, his hair now silver with age, but his eyes still sharp. Son, we have been monitoring the Nexus attacks and we think we know what they are looking for. What? Is it, Lee? Asked. They are trying to learn how we did it, how humanity went from slaves to liberators in just 50 years. They want to understand our methods so they can prevent their own subjects from following our example. Implications were staggering. The story of humanity's rise had become a beacon of hope for oppressed peoples across the galaxy, but it had also become a source of fear for those who wanted to build new empires. The Nexus machines are not just raiders, Admiral Kim continued. They are studying every successful rebellion, every liberation movement, every species that has thrown off the chains of oppression. They want to create a foolproof system of control that cannot be brokenly understood now. The 3 planet ships had done more than just destroy the old empires. They had proven that freedom was possible, that even the most oppressed people could fight back and win. And that lesson was spreading across the galaxy, inspiring new rebellions and new hopes. What are your orders, Lee? Asked. The same as always, his father replied. Protect the innocent, defend the free, and never let anyone forget that freedom is worth fighting for. As New Soul prepared to leave the colony, Lee looked out at the stars and thought about the legacy his generation had inherited. The planet ships were no longer just weapons, they were symbols of something more precious than victory. They were proof that hope could triumph over despair, that freedom could defeat oppression, and that ordinary people could do extraordinary things when they worked together. The galaxy was still a dangerous place. The Nexus Empire was just the latest threat to emerge from the darkness, and there would be others. But the lesson of humanity's rebellion had taken root. The knowledge that freedom was possible had spread to every corner of the galaxy, and as long as the planet ships continued their eternal patrol, as long as people remembered the story of how humanity had broken its chains, the light of hope would never go out. The age of empires was over forever. The age of freedom had only just begun, and in depths of space, New Soul, New Beeson, and New Jeju continued their watch over a galaxy where every world had the chance to choose its own destiny. The children of Earth had kept their promise. They had brought freedom to the stars, and they would never let it go.